this is Mrs. Hurst with the last part of our business course for GCSE OCR Business, and this section is talking about ethics, which is part of the influences on business topic, and I'm going to talk about business ethics. Ethics is where anybody really, not just a business, focuses on the right thing to do. And I think the first thing to make clear is that ethics are different from something whether it's legal or illegal. It might be legal to pay somebody minimum wage, but you might say, well, ethically we want to pay them more, so we make sure they have a good standard of life. So it's very different to something being legal or illegal. Ethics is making sure that everybody affected by the business is treated well and fairly. Very fashionable now in business circles, very important to a lot of big businesses especially, is something called corporate social responsibility, or CSR. And it's when the company operates in an ethical and sustainable way, so that impacts on the environmental issues, which I'll talk about in the next bit. And it looks at human rights, the community, the environment and society, and it makes sure that the business is behaving well towards all of those. And why is it important to have good ethics within a business? Well, it's better for the public image. If journalists find out that a business is behaving unethically, they're very quick to report it, thankfully, because then we as consumers find out and can make our choices about where to buy goods and services. It can actually save costs for businesses to be more ethical, in terms of not having to pay to improve the image. It might be that you get a naturally good image because you've got good ethics within the business. Environmental issues can actually mean that you save money. So if you're using less electricity, for example, or less water, that will cut costs within the business. Being ethical will also give an advantage over competitors who maybe aren't behaving so ethically. So customers say, actually, I'd like to shop with that business because they treat their workers fairly. And if customers have trust in the brand, that can increase customer engagement, which means they're more committed to your brand, more brand loyal, will come back and shop. And also, if you treat your employees well, they'll give better customer service. We know already they're more motivated to work hard, hopefully, and they're less likely to leave. So you improve customer retention and staff retention. And hopefully, if you've got an ethical business, then investors feel happy about investing. When news of unethical practices come out in the press, it's very often the shareholders who aren't happy because they don't want to be seen to be associated with an unethical business. Ways that businesses can be ethical there's sort of 4 ways to look, really. The first way I've already mentioned is treating workers fairly, so paying a living wage, which is higher than a minimum wage in most circumstances, allowing the workers to live a reasonable life, not using child labour, which obviously is illegal in this country, but in some countries it's not, or it can happen with nobody noticing, so checking that suppliers aren't using child labour. Not forcing workers to work over long hours, having a safe working environment, and not discriminating against workers. Again, some of those are protected by law in this country, but it's about checking down the supply chain as well, to make sure that they're not treating their workers in those ways. And those suppliers might be in a country where those things aren't particularly frowned upon. And that overlaps then with treating suppliers well, because if we're treating our suppliers well, we're paying them on time, and then helping them to keep their businesses healthy and to look after their workers. And it also overlaps with what we call ethical sourcing. And this is where your procurement department makes sure that suppliers are looking after their workers and paying a fair wage and behaving ethically. And we looked at this when we looked at the supply chain and procurement, and how difficult it can be actually for some large companies who buy from lots and lots of different sources, to check that everyone is treating their workers well and behaving ethically. We saw the video about Primark and how some of the factories they were using were getting people in refugee camps, children in refugee camps, to sew on sequins, but very difficult for Primark to check all of those different factories all of the time. And then the other part of ethics is treating customers well, treating them ethically, even if You don't have to treat them in a certain way. You know, the law only says so much about customer rights, consumer rights. Maybe it's treating them that little bit better to make sure then that the business gets a good name and good image, and it's all about good customer service really, isn't it? So that is talking about business ethics.